So here's 5 mistakes to avoid when trying out your first winter wild camp. So mistake number 1 a lot of people make is not camping near to help. What I mean by that is like within a mile or 2 of where you parked, or a nearby village, or even your garden, for example.
The reason for doing this is so you can test out your equipment and see how well it works in extremes. Then if everything goes completely wrong, if you're in your back garden, at least you can come home. If you're near your car, you can go home. It might make the difference between getting hypothermia or being okay. So it's just good to be near help wherever possible.
Yeah, we're camping out in a garden tonight, testing out some new winter kit. It's the perfect place to test stuff, because you can, like Zoe said, you can just come in and you're safe. So if things go shit up, is that a word? Shit up.
It is now.
So mistake number 2 is not checking the weather properly or accounting for elevation factors. But what a lot of people fail to check is the nighttime low, temperature wise, and things like wind chill factor as well.
Another thing to factor in is wind speed. It might be lovely at 10 o'clock in the morning when you set out and nice and calm and sunshiny and beautiful. By the time you get sort of walking for like a few hours, the weather can really change. It might end up being like -10 and gusts of 60 miles per hour. Yeah, we've noticed that quite a lot when you're walking, hiking, how colder it gets the further up you get.
Yeah, so it's something to factor in if you are planning on going up on your wild camp. It's going to be a lot colder up there. So moving on from weather, but kind of still loosely connected, is people should always expect the worst, especially on a winter camp. And if you don't expect the worst, I think you might be in for a bit of a fall. Things can go wrong. Expect things to freeze, expect rain, expect to fall headfirst in a river. I mean, it can all happen on a winter camp, and one of the most dangerous times to go camping, especially because the weather can be so harsh.
Yeah, so the worst thing that you can do is when you're really cold is end up getting completely soaked as well, because you just can't get warm. It can put your life in danger as well. So you always have to make sure that you do take spare clothes with you, that you have suitable waterproofs with you, and that you have a decent jacket, not just some kind of fashion thing that's going to soak through when you've been outside in the rain for a few hours. You want to make sure that it's something that's going to be durable, like all day long.
Yeah, getting wet is the worst possible thing, so don't pee yourself either. That's something.
Yeah, try not to do that.
But you've also got to remember things like fuel as well, and your stove. So if you've used your stove in 0 temperatures, it might work fine. But if you drop it down to -10, you might find you run into a lot of issues, especially with gas, even the extreme gas as well. So if you do get a chance and it's -10 outside and you can go out in your garden, I would say take your stove out, leave it out there for an hour or 2, and then go try cooking some food or boiling some water, or even putting your stove in the freezer for an hour before trying to use it. It all gives you a good sort of feeling of how your equipment's going to work when you're really reliant on it.
Yeah, we've definitely camped with people whose gas has not worked, so it's sort of tip is really we always keep lighters in pockets and things warm, try and keep your mess warm and things like that. It does actually help when you're out there.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds grim, but if your gas is not working, even peeing on your gas bottle is enough. It's enough to warm it up to get it working. And if you're relying on a hot drink to, not just say pee on everything.
I don't think you should pee on the gas bottle. You drink too much alcohol, it might come back as fire.
Well, yeah, I mean, shoving your gas in your sleeping bag, I would say disconnect it from your stove first, because that could end badly. But it's all things to think about. Not everyone always thinks about things like this, and it's not until you're up a mountain in the snow and you're thinking, crap,
why is my gas not working? I just want a hot drink.
Yeah, exactly. So do test it out if you can before you try and use it in those sorts of temperatures. So number 4 is making the mistake of taking sleeping bag ratings as gospel. If you're watching this and you've used sleeping bags in the extreme temperatures, you'll know how much of a big pinch of salt to take these ratings for.
Something that's quite helpful is looking for the EN number, which is 13537. This is a standardised rating, so if companies all use that, then at least you know what you're aiming for. Something else to look for is the comfort ratings, but then usually if you add on like 5 or 7 degrees on top of it, you'll have like a more realistic feel of what a sleeping bag will be like.
Yeah, so look for that EN rating, and look for that comfort rating. Forget the extreme and the near death temperature rating. That's no good to anybody.
Yeah, a lot of sleeping bag manufacturers, they don't put those ratings on, and then they just use words like extreme or, you know, snow this or other, or winter something, and it doesn't mean it's a good sleeping bag. It's just a marketing gimmick. Like if you go out there in some supermarket sleeping bag up in freezing conditions, you're probably gonna feel freezing cold or die, or something horrible might happen.
Yeah, so look for these EN ratings, find the comfort rating and add 5 to 7 degrees, and like Zoe said, you get a more of a realistic expectation of what it's going to perform like when you need it to perform. So don't freeze this winter, just do look for them ratings. There's certain manufacturers that avoid it. Rab avoids it. I'm not saying their sleeping bags are bad in any way, but it's kind of a little bit unfair for consumers, because if you look for those ratings, it's nice and even across the board. So when one manufacturer does something different, it kind of makes it a bit hard to decide
between the sleeping bags. Yes, it's hard to
decipher.
Compare them, isn't it?
Yes, it's hard to decipher the rating. So yeah, do look for that rating and the comfort rating, and you'll get a good idea. But like Zoe said, add a few degrees on top, because they always rate them a bit optimistically, I think.
Yeah, and again, just test them in your garden before you go off on your big hike if you've not done it before.
Yeah, or if you've got a walk-in freezer, then
yeah, do that.
Our mistake number 5 is people taking a summer sleeping mat for winter use. Now, I can't stress this enough. The insulation from the ground, especially in winter, is as important, if not more important, than your sleeping bag rating, because that cold ground will sap the heat from your stomach chronic. You don't always feel that it's coming directly from the ground either. It kind of sucks it from all your sleeping bag insulation that goes out into the ground. It's horrible, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, quite often we take a sleeping mat and then we take something like the Underfloor Insulation. It's just like a white piece of foam sort of, isn't it, that rolls up really small. That's quite useful to take out. Other people put like foil underneath. Anything is better than nothing. The more you get underneath you, the better. Or just buy like a insulated sleeping mat in the first place. There's some really good ones on the market now.
Yeah, don't make the mistake of using your mouth to blow up a down-filled mat or an insulation, like a synthetic fill insulated mat, because what will happen is your water vapour from your breath will start to freeze, and it will seriously affect the R value of your mat. So
it'll turn it mouldy if it's
it will. The R value is how warm a mat will go and what it can go down to. I mean, we've just bought a couple of mats that are 4.8 R value, and they are rated down to -17 with nothing underneath them. So make sure your mat's spec'd for winter, and don't blow it up with your mouth. Use the included pump or the snozzle sack or something, ball sack, I don't know what they call it, to blow it up. Cause
I don't think it's ball sack.
No, because your mat will last longer. You're not moulding it all up inside. I've seen people up on videos put the mat up against the light and it's covered in mould, and it eats away at your insulation, and it's not good for keeping you warm long term. It's only going to deteriorate, and yeah, don't blow it up with your breath unless you really, really have to. I mean, if it's a life or death situation, you know, you just. But if you've got a pump, use it. Is what I'm saying. Not a penis pump. So, if you'd like to know what clothing we use on winter camps and what's useful for hiking in winter, why we use it, how it keeps you warm, then
take a look at this video, and it might give you some helpful tips to use for in the future.
It might. Watch it. Click it now. Click, 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 click.